Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/583 please raise their hand? Those against?
Mr. President, I congratulate the Republic of Korea for its assumption of the Security Council presidency, assured of your wise leadership of these deliberations and the work of this Council. From the outset, I wish to express our thanks to Algeria, to Denmark, Guyana, Pakistan, Panama, Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and Somalia, the 10 of you, the E10, and Greece, sorry. We thank you for your leadership and relentless efforts for many long months now to push for a permanent and unconditional ceasefire that would end the massacres being perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people, that would release hostages and prisoners, that would end the occupation-imposed famine and unbearable human suffering, and that would stop the forcible displacement of our people and the annexation of Palestinian land. We listened very closely to your passionate statements and your outstanding efforts in order to try to bring this nightmare and this genocide against the Palestinian people to an end. The alternative to all of this, which is demanded by international law and by our collective humanity, is unfolding before our eyes. I can understand the anger and frustration and the huge disappointment of the Palestinian people who might be watching this session of the Security Council, hoping that there is some help is in the pipeline and this nightmare to be brought to an end. I can imagine their anger and frustration that it did not happen, and these atrocities are continuing to be imposed on them. And if any one of you, and I'm sure you do, if you see these images of the total destruction of the city of Gaza, with a flood of tens of thousands of humans navigating through that destruction, you will have no heart if you do not be moved by this amount of pain and anguish that the Palestinian people are going through it. Babies dying of starvation, snipers shooting children in the head, civilians killed en masse, families displaced again and again from ruins to ruins and from death to death. UN personnel and doctors and humanitarians and journalists targeted. Devastation and destruction rained down, pulverizing an entire society. And Israeli officials openly mocking all of this and praising the real state value of Gaza. This draft resolution represents the bare minimum that humanity, legality, and morality dictate. It is deeply regrettable and painful that it has been blocked, preventing the Security Council from playing its rightful role in the face of these atrocities and to protect civilians in the face of genocide. It is regrettable that you, the custodians of the maintenance of International Peace and Security Council, were unable to act in that direction, and the minimum is to adopt the resolution that was not adopted. Mr. President, I want to thank all those that supported this draft resolution. In addition to the 10, the 4 others that made it receive 14 votes, almost 15, but 15 minus 1. Many council members were willing to go much further than the language in the text, including by rightfully resorting to Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. Millions of people in the streets are demanding from you to use Chapter 7 in order to impose your will through whatever tools available to you to force Israel to stop this genocide against the Palestinian people. But the draft was a genuine effort for the Council to speak with one voice. Unfortunately, the Council remains silent at a great cost for its credibility and authority. This demonstrates that when it comes to atrocities, crimes, the use of the veto should simply not be allowed. The United States has been, together with Egypt and Qatar, trying to reach a ceasefire agreement. We supported repeatedly the mediation efforts towards a ceasefire agreement and called repeatedly on Hamas to cooperate with them, even when Israel was sparing no effort to prevent reaching such an agreement. What more proof is needed that Israel does not want a ceasefire agreement that would save Palestinian and Israeli lives? After the Israeli strike on the territory of Qatar, a key mediator, to target those that the mediator was convening to reach such a ceasefire agreement and to end this nightmare. We condemn on the strongest terms this attack against the sisterly country of Qatar. Whether in Gaza or in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem or in the region, Israel has chosen time and time again the path of violence. In response to the global demands for a ceasefire and the global demands for an end to its illegal occupation, it chooses instead to escalate its violence, committing crime upon crime with no end in sight, with full impunity. And children, women, and men, entire families, are paying with their lives for this appalling impunity and inhumanity. Just 2 days ago, the Human Rights Council's Independent Commission of Inquiry joined the many concluding on the basis of the undeniable evidence that this is a genocide, reaffirming the obligation in all states, without exception, to act now to prevent and punish this crime that shames the world, that shames all of us. Mr. President, violence is an impasse. Ceasefire saves lives, Palestinians and Israelis, and hostages and prisoners. There is no justification for killing and harming civilians, whether Palestinians or Israelis. Calling for such violence to end can suffer no conditions, no delays, no excuses. One should not see only partially the suffering of a group of people and completely ignore to acknowledge the mountains of suffering of the Palestinian people. It is the right thing to do. It is the only thing to do. There is no right for Israel to massacre Palestinians. There is no right for Israel to commit genocide. There is no right for Israel to commit ethnic cleansing. There is no right for Israel to starve a people. There is no right for Israel to displace and dispossess a nation. Israel's impunity is fueling its folly. Shielding it is allowing it to persist on a horrific path that will never lead to peace or security or integration. No matter how many tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of soldiers, they cannot erase from the face of earth a nation, the Palestinian nation, nor will they be able to succeed in eradicating tens of thousands, millions of Palestinians. We are here to stay, and there is no power on earth that will negate our existence. So for those who are living in denial and drunk with their ecstasy and victories, wake up. The only road is the road to peace. The only road is the road of the two-state solution, to live next to each other and peace and security. We are committed to that. The whole world is committed to that. There is only one party, led with a group of fanatic leaders who are refusing to accept that, and they are trying, in a futile exercise, to eradicate the existence of the Palestinian people and their national rights, including their right to self-determination, statehood, and the right of the refugees. Israel must be stopped for the sake of our people and for the sake of the Israeli people and for the sake of our region and for the sake of our international community and the international system created to save humanity. A ceasefire must take place. Hostages and prisoners must be released. Aid must flood Gaza, and the UN and humanitarians must be allowed to do their work, save lives. 2 million people must be saved from this hell. The veto prevented this council from taking action at a time when it is most needed for the maintenance of international peace and security. But that is not the end, and it will not be the end, as many of you said. All states must take their responsibility and take decisive measures that will deter Israel, the occupying power, from pursuing its criminal schemes against our people. They have the tools. All of you have the tools in your national capacity and collectively. You have the tools, and these tools must be used. Use them, including through an international protection force and immediate tangible accountability measures. We recognize and thank all those who have been taking bold decisions to end the horrors, to end this illegal occupation. The General Assembly demanded a year ago an end of the Israeli occupation by September 2025. Following the ICJ advisory opinion deeming this occupation illegal, and to ensure the rights and freedom of the Palestinian people and the independence of the State of Palestine, and to advance real justice and lasting peace. We urge the implementation of those decisions. We appeal to all to uphold their obligations with action to ensure accountability, to end Israelis' impunity, to protect the Palestinian people, to salvage the two-state solution, to salvage the prospects for a just peace, and that Israel is trying to destroy every single day. Mr. President, there is a future with no violence, no hatred, no killing, where the forces of peace finally prevail, and we are getting stronger, the forces of peace. Not only the 14 of you in this chamber, but almost the entire membership of the General Assembly. And it is growing with hundreds of millions who are demonstrating in the streets asking for peace and asking for a ceasefire. But accessing that future starts by stopping this madness. In the coming days, leaders gathering here in New York on this 80th anniversary of the United Nations must take individually and collectively the decisions that will save Gaza, save Palestine, save peace, save the Middle East, and save our international law-based order. Palestine will be present, whether physically or through other measures. Tomorrow, in the General Assembly, we expect an overwhelming voting on the resolution that demands that Palestine to be present. We prefer that our leaders to be present physically, just to come peacefully, to express the position of the Palestinian people like all of your leaders do. But whether we are physically there, meaning our leaders, or that whether they will participate in other methods, Palestine will be there. It will be the biggest elephant in New York City. This General Assembly will be the General Assembly of the question of Palestine. Action can no longer be delayed. There is far too much at stake. Gaza is the ultimate test, and two Palestinian people for 2 years now have paid the price of our failure to stop the killing machine launched against them. We cannot fail them any longer. We have to act. We have to act now, and we are confident that the army of those who will be joining the action march will get bigger and bigger. Palestine will not be the exception to the rule. As humanity succeeded in putting an end to apartheid, humanity will succeed in putting an end to this illegal occupation, and Palestine will be free, and the two-state solution will be a reality. Thank you.
Mr. President, some in this Council treat these sessions as theater, as a show. For Israel, it's not theater. It is our daily reality. Just hours ago, 2 Israelis were murdered at the Allenby crossing on the Israel-Jordan border, when a truck marked for humanitarian aid was turned into a weapon of terror. This is the reality we face. Words spoken here as performance can have deadly consequences on the ground. First, we would like to thank the United States for showing leadership and moral conviction by vetoing this biased resolution. Members of the Council, how did this draft resolution come before us? It began as Algeria's one-sided text. The United States engaged in good faith, seeking to add balance, to acknowledge truth, moral clarity, peace and security. Algeria refused. For weeks, Algeria has run the show, not to seek compromise, but to stall, dragging talks until the stage lights of high-level week were upon us. Great timing. Not to strengthen consensus, but to strip away balance. Step by step, line by line, it worked to weaken the truth. So ask yourselves, why did you yield to Algeria's radical demands, yet refuse to preserve the simple of facts? Let me remind you what Algeria would not allow you to include in this draft resolution. One, that all acts of terrorism are criminal and unjust. That Hamas is a terrorist organization. That Hamas's terrorist attack on October 7th must be condemned. That Hamas must disarm and leave the Gaza Strip. Why were these lines deleted? The answer is simple. Algeria cares more for the show than the truth, more about the credit than making real progress. Too many here are prepared to follow its lead. What we see here is not diplomacy, it is theater. For Algeria, the substance never mattered, only the performance, the timing, the process, the applause, not the people of Gaza, not their suffering. If you truly care for the people of Gaza, you would condemn Hamas. You would include it in the resolution. Instead, you protect Hamas, reading from their script and casting them in the leading role on the stage you have built in this council. I know many of you as serious diplomats, yet by endorsing a draft resolution that dares to imply Israel is starving the people of Gaza, you echo the propaganda of Hamas. Ask yourselves, is that truly a choice you are prepared to defend? Is that the part you wish to play, reciting their script rather than speaking the truth? Facts are facts. The crossings are open. Humanitarian aid is moving into Gaza through 4 active entry points. Yesterday alone, on Wednesday, September 17th, 226 aid trucks entered Gaza, and 550 Gazans were evacuated for life-saving medical treatment. Since May, more than 13,000 trucks of food, medicine, and essentials have come by land, sea, and air. Starvation is not, and has never been, Israel's policy. Our policy is to fight terror, to fight Hamas, the ones actually starving hostages. A refusal to face facts is not neutrality. It is a choice that strengthens Hamas and prolongs the suffering of both Israelis and Palestinians. What we see again is a carefully staged performance crafted for headlines, not for peace. Even in its one-sided resolution last Friday, the General Assembly called for Hamas to, and I quote, end its rule in Gaza. The General Assembly, at the very least, condemned, and I quote again, the attacks committed by Hamas against civilians on the 7th of October. Yet, this draft resolution before the Security Council could not even do that. Usually the opposite, you know. Make no mistake, Hamas waits in the wings, the only beneficiary of this stage drama. This draft text delivers them the standing ovation they so crave as reward for their barbarism and murder. In this chamber, Algeria has acted as Hamas's puppet. While Algeria plays theater, our hostages remain underground, starved, tortured, humiliated. Where this resolution was stripped of truth and courage, Hamas stole aid and prepared new attacks. While Ambassador Amar Benjam chases applause, Israelis and Palestinians pay the price. The result is a draft text before us, a resolution that fails to label Hamas as a terrorist organization, fails to condemn the October 7th massacre, fails to demand Hamas disarm and end its rule in Gaza. This is not the product of diplomacy. It is the product of obstruction. It is not the work of mediators. It is the work of a ringleader for radicals and terrorists. Too often, in the past 2 years, the world's moral compass has spun off course. Instead of unified outrage at innocent people dragged into tunnels, we hear hesitation and excuses, or worse, silence. Israel has even been asked to justify what needs no justification, bringing our hostages home and confronting Hamas to prove that there is no immunity for terrorists. Israel did not want this war. Israel did not ask for it. When Hamas invaded Israel, attacked our towns, killed our people, and took hostages underground, war was forced upon us. This Council has a choice. You can continue with the absence of moral clarity, or you can act with purpose. You can steer this organization back to its true north, toward truth, justice, and peace. Political maneuvering and empty gestures lead only to irrelevance. Hypocrisy and one-sidedness will never deliver peace. Members, this is a crucial moment. This year, we mark 80 years since the UN was created, an institution born after evil was defeated in a long and costly war. The triumph of light over darkness made its creation possible. But before the axis of evil was overcome, some chose to face tyranny with appeasement, while others stood firmly. While Prime Minister Chamberlain told his people to go home and sleep quietly as tyranny marched forward, Churchill's path was different, the path of courage and moral clarity. Churchill confronted tyranny and overcame it, and so will we. For as Churchill warned, tyranny is our foe, in whatever trappings or disguise it wears, in whatever language it speaks, from within or without. We must be vigilant, resolute, and united. Israel will not be told to go home and sleep while terror stands at our door. We will not rest until every hostage is home and until Hamas is defeated.
Of United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, U.S. opposition to this resolution will come as no surprise. It fails to condemn Hamas or recognize Israel's right to defend itself, and it wrongly legitimizes the false narratives benefiting Hamas, which have sadly found currency in this Council. Council members ignored when the United States made clear that this resolution was unacceptable. The Council instead adopted for performative action designed to draw a veto that extends Hamas terrorists and those who fund them and support them and gives them a lifeline. Let's recall that Hamas started this brutal conflict on October 7th, 2023, when it perpetrated the worst massacre and kidnapping of Jews since the Holocaust. To the approval of its supporters who took to the streets on October 8th to praise what Hamas had done, Hamas promises to repeat October 7th. Despite everything, Hamas has no regrets. The lives of Gaza's civilians in harm's way are mere tools in the project to destroy Israel. Hamas continues to hold 48 hostages. Those who remain alive are captive in a living hell. It has done so for 713 days. We have seen the chilling videos and images of how Hamas has starved the hostages. In this Council, we have heard heart-rending testimony from freed hostages, how Hamas brutalized and sexually assaulted them during their captivity. Hamas is responsible for starting and continuing this war. Israel has accepted proposed terms that would end the war, but Hamas continues to reject them. This war could end today if Hamas freed the hostages and laid down its arms. This resolution has other serious defects beyond just failing to condemn Hamas. First, the United States has stressed since this conflict began that Israel has the right to defend itself. This resolution seeks an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire that would leave Hamas in a position to carry out future October 7th attacks, as it has threatened to do so many times. This resolution draws a dangerous false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. There can be no equating the two, full stop. The hostages in this resolution are a mere afterthought. The United States will never accept this. President Trump will never accept this. He has made clear all 48 hostages must be released now. This resolution also refuses to acknowledge and seeks to return to a failed system that has allowed Hamas to enrich and strengthen itself at the expense of civilians in need. This resolution wrongly references the IPC report with its flawed methodology, changed standards, and clear bias. Gaza has humanitarian needs because of Hamas and because the international community turned a blind eye to the true use of the billions in aid that it provided. Israel takes clear risks by working every single day with the United States and regional partners to deliver aid to civilians, as we witnessed today. As Ambassador Huckabee said, initial reports show a terrorist arrived at Albany Crossing, driving an aid truck intended for Gaza, and murdered 2 Israeli soldiers. This heinous act betrays the trust in humanitarian efforts. We offer our condolences to the bereaved IDF families. This resolution fails to recognize the reality on the ground that there has been a meaningful increase in the flow of humanitarian aid. However, the UN's own data shows that approximately 85% of UN aid sent to Gaza since May 19th has been intercepted. We must ensure that this aid reaches the civilians who need it rather than sustaining the Hamas terrorists. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF, supports that goal, delivering over 167 million meals to date to those in need rather than to Hamas. GHF works well, and it is untainted by the extreme failure of other organizations at the UN. The UN and the Council members should support the GHF and other mechanisms, including airdrops by Jordan, the UAE, and international partners facilitating deliveries of food and other supplies into Gaza. These mechanisms have delivered humanitarian assistance and other goods to those in need and denied Hamas the supply on which they have come to rely. So, the United States rejects this unacceptable resolution. It is beyond time that Hamas release every single hostage now and surrender immediately. The United States will continue to work with its partners to bring an end to this horrific conflict for the sake of the people of Gaza, who deserve a future free from Hamas, and the whole Middle East, which is ready to move into a new chapter of peace and prosperity. For these reasons, the United States of America will vote against the draft resolution and urges delegations to join us in voting against it.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/583 please raise their hand? Those against?
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.